Hey, I'm Jason Golstein, and you're watching RespectTheNext.com.
What's up, Respect the Next TV? I'm Empress Elliot Monroe, and today I'm in Soho with the master mixing engineer, Mr. Jason Golstein. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for having us in this amazing space. So I first want to ask you, how did you get started in this industry?
I was a DJ in high school and in my college years, and when I was 18, I grew up on the East Coast, and when I was 18, I moved to LA and responded to an ad in a magazine just to get a job at a recording studio. And I went and I swept the floors and I tarred the roof. I was a runner. That's what they called it out there. And I didn't know at the time, but it was Ocean Way Studios, and Ocean Way Studios is one of the most famous studios in the history of studios. It's up there with Capitol and Abbey Road in the UK. It's where Frank Sinatra recorded, and Pet Sounds, which by the Beach Boys, which is arguably one of the best sounding records of all time. And I was really fortunate. I got to learn from some really great engineers, and I just lived and breathed the studio. Didn't go to school. Worked from, my shift was from 6 p.m. until the last session left, which could be any time.
Right.
Or 8 o'clock, whichever came first. So, and then from 8 o'clock to, say, 12, I would stay and work for free and work on the sessions and just be a fly on the wall and observe. Go home, sleep for a couple of hours, do my laundry, whatever, come right back to the studio and do it again. 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week, for it was years, and then from there I actually moved back to New York, and started working for the Trackmasters, who are famous for doing all of Will Smith's biggest records. Jay-Z, LL, they defined, I would say, the late 90s, early 2000s hip-hop. It was sort of them, and Puffy was in there too, and some other people, but they were definitely, as far as pop, hip-hop went, they were the guys. They did, Destiny's Child, and so, through them, I got to work with a ton of great artists, and other producers, because they would executive produce albums. So they executive produced The Blueprint, which I mixed a number of songs on. So I was able to work with Kanye and Just Blaze, and then it expanded from there. I was fortunate enough to get picked to work on the Roots wanted to try a pop sounding thing, which they had never done before, do a real pop hip hop song.
Right.
So they tapped me to do that, and I did that song for them on their Phrenology record. It's called Break You Off, featuring Music, Soul Child, and from there I've mixed the last 4 albums for them. So I've been really fortunate to work with some great people in my career. Yeah, really lucky.
You have quite a roster there. Beyonce, Jay-Z.
Yeah, Beyonce I met through Jay.
Nice.
She actually liked. I mixed Bonnie and Clyde for The Blueprint too.
Oh,
and
wow.
She liked the way her vocals sounded on that. So I was tapped to do the B-Day record. Which had Irreplaceable on it, so
a lot of hits.
Yeah. So I got to meet Stargate and work with them.
Oh, nice.
And Pharrell, the Neptunes did a couple of cuts on there. What can you say? It's just been I've been real fortunate,
Yeah, I would say so. I would say with that roster, I would say so. Tell us, typically, how does your day start?
Nowadays I mix completely in the box, like a lot of guys do, but I've been doing it for a long time. I send out sort of like a guideline for the client to present the files to me in, because when you mix a lot, if they don't do it, you end up spending a lot of time cleaning up and organizing. So, that being said, a lot of stuff still comes in. I work with a lot of producers and artists who are doing it themselves, and they're self-taught, and you know, it's not their fault, but they just don't know how to organize and properly. So I usually start off a song, you know, going through it and listening to it and organizing it, labeling it if stuff isn't properly labeled. You know, and that can take a while or sometimes just a few minutes. But I like to listen to everything. I like to listen to the rough mix, and then I just push all the faders up and listen to how close the record is to the rough mix. You know, without, you know, what am I going to have to do to make it sound like the rough mix first, and then improve upon that. Because at the end of the day, if they really love the rough mix, they would just put that out. You know, so there's something about it that they don't like. You know what I mean? And you know, I have the luxury of mixing in the box, especially if I'm doing more than one song for an artist. I'll go through, and before I even really start mixing, I'll organize all the songs. And that way I have a feel. I've heard 4, 5, 6, 7, if it's a whole album, 10 songs. And I'll have an idea for what the common theme or thread of the album is.
Right.
And then I'll just mix them. I'll spend 2 or 3 hours on one, 2 or 3 hours on another, and 2 or 3 hours on another. And then put them away. And then come back to them the next day. And each day I always print a reference mix at the end of the day or at the end of each 2 or 3 hour segment. And I will go in the next day and then just see if I can improve on my mix. You know what I mean? And when I feel like I've, you know, done what I can do for that record and it sounds as good as I can, you know, make it, I'll send it off to the client if they want to do that, or we'll arrange to come to the studio and listen, and then we'll go through, you know, and tweak the records, and we'll make adjustments, and you know, they can tell me, you know, what about my mix they like or don't like, and you know, it's always almost always a collaborative effort.
Okay,
you know?
so you do have interaction.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very rare that the mix is just 100% right. You know what I mean? Even if it's something small, like turn up the third harmony in the chorus just a little bit, I'm just missing that note. You know what I mean? I had, because once you mix a record, things pop out that weren't there before. You know, and sometimes they'll say, no, I wanted that particular instrument a little bit lower in the mix. It sound, you know, it's too, you know. So there's, again, music is subjective, and you know, there's no right or wrong answer. So they, you know, they want that turned out. Lots of times, because I've been hired for something they heard. They heard a song that I mixed, and they say, you know, we have a conversation ahead of time, and they say, well, I say, well, how'd you find me? And I did my research, and I really loved the last Roots album. Okay, I know what you want now. You know, within a certain, now we're in the ballpark right away.
Yeah.
You know, or I heard the Beyonce record, or I heard, you know, Mary or whatever. I know what they want, you know, right away. So it's usually a minimal amount of back and forth, you know, little tweaks, little
What's
tweaks.
the most time you've probably spent on mixing a record?
Oh, I mean, days and days. Seriously, days. You know, that's real days, because lots of times when you do these reference mixes, it takes a day for them to get back to you. I don't count that. You know,
Okay.
They go and they listen to it, and they come back, and the actual work only takes another 5 minutes. You know what I mean? They give you a list via email or on the phone. Turn this up, turn this down a little bit. You send it back, and they go, great. You know, but I've spent like numerous 8-hour days mixing certain songs. You just, you know, the producer's got something that they want, and you just got to keep fighting to get it. You know what I mean? It's just till they hear it, and then you just stop. You know, and so yeah, and it's not because it was badly recorded or anything like that. They're just, you know. There's an emotion, you know, that was trying to be brought out of the record, you know, and that's how it used to be, you know what I mean? When we couldn't put records away so quickly, it's like closing a Word document. You had to leave it up, you know what I mean? And you know, with all the outboard gear, sometimes you'd spend 2 days mixing a record, and then they'd go listen, and then they'd still have changes, and you'd have to do what's called a recall, which means reset all these knobs
Oh, wow.
and all this gear to where it was, and just to make even the smallest change,
Adjustment.
just
Wow.
to just go like that, everything had to be, brought back to, or if they decided to edit the record and change the arrangement, like they did, all of a sudden they decided they wanted strings, or they wanted a guest artist on it, or whatever, or to do the remix or whatever, to bring the record back up. So, it was a very expensive way to work, and very time consuming. Sometimes you had to leave it up because 3 people needed to hear it. The producer needed to hear it, and the artist needed to hear it, and then the A&R needed to come in and hear it, and all their schedules
wow.
were different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they all had opinions, so the producer would come in and he'd go, that's it sounds great. And the artist would come in and go, nope, I really need this or that done, and you make those changes. A&R guy would come in and change something behind the artist, and the producer would hear it, and he'd go, what the hell did you do? And then you'd have to get all of them in a room together and go, look, you guys fight it out, and come back to me and let me know what, you want to do.
Gosh, for one record.
Oh, yeah.
For one record.
One song. And that would happen for every song.